Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
In October of 1903, the New York Times published an editorial mocking the idea of human flight, stating that a successful flying machine might take from 1 to 10 million years to develop through the efforts of mathematicians and engineers. 8 weeks later, on December 17th, the Wright brothers achieved the first powered controlled flight over the beaches of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, proving the skeptics wrong. Get this, the smartest people in the world got this catastrophically wrong. What did that tell us about impossibility itself? Us declaring that something is impossible. Now, every industry has billion-dollar opportunities hiding behind a single word. This word, impossible. And most executives never see them coming because they've been trained to accept the limitations that don't actually exist. I'm Phil McKinney, and welcome to my innovation studio. In today's episode, I'll share with you how to spot which impossible ideas in your industry are actually billion-dollar opportunities waiting to happen. Plus, I'll give you a simple detection method that lets you catch these breakthroughs while your competitors are still calling them fantasies. And if this kind of content resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button and that like button. It helps us with the algorithm and helps us reach more people. And if you'd like to delve deeper into these topics, consider subscribing to my studio notes over on Substack. All the links are in the description below. Plus, if you know someone who might find this episode useful, feel free to share it with them. All right, let's dive in. If the smartest experts can be so wrong about something as fundamental as human flight, then we need to completely rethink how we evaluate impossibility. The problem isn't that impossible things become possible. The problem is that we're terrible recognizing what's actually impossible versus what just looks impossible. Innovation, let's define the terms here. Innovation is simply an idea made real. Not brilliant concepts sitting in your notebooks. This is actual stuff you can touch, you can use, you can buy, and you can experience. Leonardo da Vinci invented flying machines in the 15th century. The Wright brothers innovated flight in 1903. What's the difference? Da Vinci had amazing ideas that stayed ideas. The Wright brothers made the ideas real. That distinction changes everything about impossible innovation. Has someone successfully transformed an impossible idea into a tangible reality? Then logically, it was never truly impossible. We just lack the knowledge, the tools, or perspective to make it happen. Those dismissed breakthroughs floating around in your industry right now, they aren't abstract fantasies. They're concrete challenges waiting for someone to develop the right knowledge, the right tools, and the right perspective. Now, not all impossibilities are created equal. There are three distinct categories. First up, logically impossibility. Things that contradict themselves by definition, such as married bachelors or square circles. But even these sometimes dissolve when we reframe the question. Let's take an example, negative numbers. Logically impossible for centuries until merchants needed to describe debt. Scientists needed to measure temperature below freezing. Suddenly, those impossible numbers became essential tools. Next up, physical impossibility. Things that appear to violate natural laws, like quantum mechanics would have been physically impossible under 19th century physics. Today, we're building quantum computers using those impossible principles. And then third, practical impossibility. Ideas that don't violate logic or physics, they're just beyond our current capabilities, like commercial fusion power, artificial intelligence, reversing human aging. Most breakthrough innovations emerge from this third category. They represent temporary constraints, not permanent barriers. Now, here's what nobody talks about. The companies that get blindsided by impossible innovations are not stupid. They're victims of expertise. The more you know about an industry, the harder it becomes to see past its false limitations. Everyone sees innovation requires thinking outside the box. This is the term that everybody uses. However, that's backwards. The biggest breakthrough comes from questioning the box itself. Not thinking outside your industry's limitations, questioning whether those limitations are even real. Now, when I took over as CTO at HP, the PC division was hemorrhaging money. $3 to $5 billion a year in losses. Dead last in market share. Everyone inside the company and across the industry believed there was no room to innovate in PCs. It's just too commoditized, too many competitors, too mature. It's impossible to differentiate. That belief? Complete nonsense. We took that division from massive losses to $5 billion in profits, from last place to number one global market share, all in 3 years. How? By introducing innovations that everyone else in the industry said were impossible. Missing these patterns don't just cost market share, it costs entire business models. I've watched billion-dollar companies become footnotes because they couldn't see past their own expertise. The tools I'm sharing today come from that experience and dozens others like it. But what if I told you there's a way to cut through all the industry BS in less than 5 minutes? What if claims about what can't be done could be systematically dismantled with just the right questions? So, these questions, these 5 questions I'm going to share with you, cut through the industry BS faster than anything else I've ever seen. They force you to get specific about dismissive claims instead of accepting them at face value. That separate real barriers from fake ones. Here's the framework that changes everything. When the industry consensus calls something a fantasy, don't dismiss it automatically. Run it through a reality check. Run it through this list of questions. So question number 1, what makes this seem undoably specifically? Do not accept vague claims. Push for precise limiting factors, such as, electric vehicles seemed undoable because batteries were always heavy and expensive and short range. That assumption turned out to be temporary. Question number 2, which type of impossibility are you dealing with? Apply the 3 category framework we just talked about. Ideas that seem logically impossible might just need conceptual reframing. Practical limitations often just need enabling technologies to mature. Question number 3, what knowledge would make this possible? Work backwards from success. If this dismissed idea actually became real, which specific breakthroughs would have been necessary? Which are already happening in adjacent fields that we can borrow? Question number 4, who benefits from keeping this being defined as impossible? Consider motivations carefully. Sometimes dismissive claims protect existing interests. They don't reflect genuine technical reality. Question number 5, are different technologies starting to connect? Innovations happen when separate advances suddenly align. Multiple technologies, multiple trends, all at once. Let's take a look at the case study. And I've used this case study many times already, so stick with me here. SpaceX. When Elon Musk announced plans to dramatically reduce launch costs in the early 2000s, asking the 5 questions would have revealed everything you need to know. His answer to question 1, hey, look, we just assumed everything was impossible. Launch costs had remained around $10,000 per kilo for decades. Everyone said this was fundamental physics. Or question number 2, what was the practical limitation? Well, there was not a fundamental barrier. There was nothing that was really at that base level. Question number 3, there were knowledge gaps. They were in precision landing, rapid refurbishment, and manufacturing at scale, all solvable engineering problems. Or question 4, it's the people who had the vested interest to keep that assumption at $10,000 per kilo was the established aerospace contractors, had massive incentives to maintain that expensive status quo. Their entire business model depended on it. And question number 5, multiple conditions were converging. What are all the technologies aligning? There were advanced computing and new material sciences and private capital availability. The 5 questions revealed that launch cost reduction was a practical limitation waiting for an engineering solution. And by 2024, SpaceX had reduced the cost to launch per kilogram by 90%. The impossible became routine. How many launches that SpaceX does? They probably do hundreds, launching Starlink satellites and payloads and going and refurbishing the space station. The impossible has become routine. Now, those questions, the 5 questions, work perfectly once someone mentions a dismissed breakthrough. However, the real competitive advantage lies in spotting these opportunities while your competitors are still dismissing them as fantasy. And that requires something more executives completely overlook. That requires something different, not just analysis tools, but detection systems. And most companies get this completely wrong. They think it's about having better technology scouts or attending more conferences. It's not. It's about rewiring how your organization processes dismissed ideas. The foundation of any detection system is people who think differently about what's possible. Start here. We're going to do 2 exercises that change how your team processes industry blind spots. So exercise number 1, what I call the time traveler's memo. Imagine you're writing from 2034 back to yourself today. Find one dismissed innovation from your industry that has completely transformed the business in 2034. Something today that everybody says is impossible, but imagine that it's solved by 2034, and you're writing a memo back to yourself. Write a detailed memo, not just some, hey, it's solved and world is good. Write a detailed memo. Cover, what was the breakthrough that seemed undoable? Why did experts dismiss it so confidently? What early warning signs did everybody ignore? What would you do differently today knowing this outcome? This forces you to think like your future disrupted self, looking backwards instead of your present expert self trying to look forward. Looking forward is always harder. You're easy to filter and dismiss as things being crazy. Put yourself in the future and write that memo. Exercise number 2, the war room session. This is where you harness collective intelligence to break through these dismissive assumptions. When you get dispersed perspectives in one room, people with different backgrounds, different parts of the organization, inside your organization, outside your organization, patterns emerge that no individual can see alone. So this one's going to take you about 3 hours. Put together a very diverse team. And you're going to start off by putting 3 columns on the wall, 3 different pieces of paper on the wall that you can write to. You can do it digitally if you want. First column. Column says, industry calls this undoable. Column number 2, technologies that might enable it. And column number 3, who might be working on this right now. So the magic happens when you connect the insights across these columns. Suddenly you'll see industry's fantasy challenge, actually someone else's current research project. So how do you run a war room? Start with the obvious stuff. Phase 1 is just brainstorming. 30 minutes of everything he or she says cannot be done. Don't filter anything. Now, let's dig a little deeper. Phase 2 takes about an hour, and the research where you need to be true to each idea to work. This could be adjacent fields. So what are the technologies? What are all the things that have got to align? Emerging technologies, anything that has dependencies on other things, time to get specific. And then phase 3, set aside about 45 minutes. Identify who might be tackling these problems, such as research groups and universities and startups, tech giants, government initiatives. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Phase 4, take 30 minutes to draw connections between the columns. So just draw lines. This was impossible. Here's what needs to happen. And here's a technology that needs to be aligned with it. Which of the most active research happening is behind the scenes? This is the moment of truth. Phase 5 is 15 minutes of team voting. You're voting on what most likely becomes real within 5 years. The biggest threat to the current business model, the most significant opportunity for new revenue, the output is not predictions. You're not trying to predict the future. It's intelligence about where to pay attention. These exercises reveal incredible insights, but there's something even more powerful that most companies never build. Something that works even when you're drowning in the quarterly reviews and the daily fires. So, most companies run these exercises once. They get real excited about the insights, and then they go back to quarterly business reviews and forget everything they've learned. 6 months later, they're blindsided by exactly the innovations they identified. The solution isn't doing more exercises. It's building simple systems that keep running even when you're not paying attention. So, individual evaluation is just the beginning. Things like, the memos, the exercise. But organizations that win consistently, they've built systems for discovering breakthrough innovations while competitors still call them fantasies. The first place to look might surprise you. Universities. Universities are where professors tackle dismissed problems without quarterly pressure. Set up relationships with 3 to 5 research institutions. Not your industry's obvious schools. Go to other places. Places where enabling technologies are developing. Retail executives should be, talking to robotics labs. Healthcare leaders should be monitoring material science programs. Energy companies should be watching quantum computing research. What actually works? So you want to start off pretty simple. Monthly calls with key researchers. Annual events where academics present early stage work. Host an event. Bring them to your organization. Student internship programs for early insight into research directions. I can tell you from our experience, having both PhD students and postdocs as part of our summer internship program has had an unbelievable, phenomenal impact on our organization. You need to budget roughly $50,000 annually per institution for that meaningful relationship. It's not that expensive. If you had to hire an engineer with that expertise, you're going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. $50,000 to a research institution builds that relationship with professors and their students. Next, follow the smart money. Serious capital flowing towards dismissed technologies. Where is it? These signals something's changing. Track which venture capitalists, private equity, private investors are funding fantasy innovations in adjacent spaces. Follow the VC's portfolio company, see where it's going. When Kleiner Perkins started funding fusion energy startups, that was intelligence about practical limitations becoming investment reality. Now, here again, simple systems that work. Set up a Google alert for funding announcements in related fields so you don't miss anything. Subscribe to your favorite VC's newsletters. Attend pitch events where breakthrough ideas are getting presented. Pattern recognition develops over time. You're not going to recognize everything right away, but when you do see an announcement or you do get surprised, think back to all the weak signals you had, and you become better at identifying the weak signals. And finally, the pattern changed everything for us at HP, specifically for the turnaround. outside perspectives. I did not come from the consumer electronics industry. I did not come from the PC industry. I came from telecom, stepping into the CTO role at HP. People trained in your industry's limitations cannot see past them. Bring in outsiders who have not learned what's undoable yet. Recent graduates from different fields, entrepreneurs who've solved problems that have been dismissed from completely other industries, consultants with cross-industry pattern recognition. So here's what worked and what worked for us. Set up quarterly advisory sessions with 3 to 4 people from entirely different industries. Rotate one person out maybe every 6 months or so to keep the perspectives fresh. Give them your toughest challenges up front and ask them to approach it like a problem in their own field, their own industry. Run focused innovation challenges where you present outsiders with one specific undoable problem. Give them background context, but don't explain why it's dismissed. Set a tight deadline, like 48 hours has tended to work pretty well. You'll be amazed at what solutions emerge when people have not learned the constraints. Then create a simple system to capture outside questions. When someone asks, why don't you just whatever about something everyone knows is undoable, write it down immediately. Review these questions monthly. Half will be naive, but the other half will reveal assumptions you don't know you had. So, now depending on your industry and organization, you might also want to systematically monitor patent filings in adjacent fields or designate specific people to champion breakthrough ideas instead of shooting them down. The key is starting with these 3 core approaches, then adding layers as you see what works that's unique to your industry. Now, that's exactly how we dominated at HP. An organized way of watching for breakthroughs while competitors relied on intuition and luck. You can start to build the same advantage this week, but the clock is already ticking. While you've been talking about frameworks and systems, someone in your industry is already working on what everyone else calls fantasy. The question isn't whether breakthrough innovation will blind your market. It's whether you'll be disruptor or you will be disrupted. So don't wait for organizational buy-in or perfect systems. Start with these immediate actions that you can take personally. First action this week, apply the reality check, the 5 questions to one idea your industry calls a fantasy. Just set aside 30 minutes, get specific about limiting factors. Your second move, identify and contact 2 universities doing research in adjacent fields. Make the phone calls. I am always amazed that when I reach out to universities and tell them what I'm interested in, these professors are thrilled to talk about their research and love to hear other people's ideas and brainstorm how their work can apply to what's going on in other parts of technologies, in my case. The third step, set up 3 Google alerts for venture capital funding and technologies related to your industry's dismissed challenges. If you don't know how to set up a Google alert, go out and actually say how to set up Google Alert in Google, and it will walk you through step by step. And in some cases, you can use your AI, whether it be ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, whatever, and ask it what would they recommend for your Google alerts, which ones you should set up given some descriptor of your industry. Fourth action, spend 1 hour searching patent databases for recent applicants related to your industry's undoable problems. Document who's filing what and keep an eye on them. The fifth and final step, schedule conversations with 2 people from completely different fields. Go to lunch, take them to dinner. Ask them about your industry's toughest challenges. Once you start seeing results from these actions, scale the ones that work best for your organization. Personal insights become systematic advantage. The goal is not perfection, it's momentum. Are you going to be able to see a match every week signal? No, right? These 5 actions this week just create an intelligence about breakthrough innovations before they become possible. It gives you hints. Now, every industry has someone working on what everyone else calls fantasy right now. The question isn't whether breakthrough innovation will happen, it's whether you will recognize it while it's still called fantasy or after it disrupts everything you thought you knew. So, back to our opening question and back to my post over on Substack on Monday. Innovation cannot actually be undoable. Can innovation be impossible? No. If someone makes an idea real, it was never truly impossible. It was never truly undoable. We just lack the knowledge, the tools, and the perspective. Every dismissed idea floating around your industry represents a potential breakthrough. Someone is going to acquire the necessary knowledge to make it happen. The competitive advantage goes to the people who identify each dismissed idea are knowledge gaps rather than permanent barriers. The Wright brothers were bicycle mechanics, not aviation experts. Steve Jobs was a college dropout, not a computer engineer. We achieved what the PC industry giants called fantasy because we questioned assumptions entire industries had stopped questioning. Your industry's next transformation is already being developed by someone who doesn't accept current dismissive consensus. Will you recognize it while it's still called fantasy, or after it disrupts everything you thought you knew? Or do you want to be a disruptor? Do you want to be the pain in the side of someone established? But let me get personal prediction. I'm going to share with you a dream of mine of what for many years people thought was absolutely impossible. There's one breakthrough, and I've been on the record on this prediction for more than a decade, I would say. And I want to see this innovation in my lifetime. What is that? Molecular scale medical robots, programmable nanobots that live in your bloodstream permanently, providing real-time health monitoring and instant medical intervention. They could prevent heart attacks mid-beat. They could eliminate cancer cells the moment they form, even upgrade your immune system with new capabilities. Now, I've talked about this innovation for decades. I've written articles about it. I've written white papers on this to the point where I shared this dream in a 3-minute vision video that I executive produced back in 2017 in the near future. Now, you can watch that 3-minute short film. It's probably the easiest way for you to understand what I'm dreaming about, what I think could happen, and via the link in the description below or over in the show notes. And now we're 8 years later just from that film, and multiple research groups are making serious progress on exactly these technologies. What seemed like a fantasy in 2017 when I made that film is becoming a practical impossibility today. What dismissed ideas in your industry are you now viewing differently? What early warning signs might you be missing? Share your observations in the comments. Let's build collective intelligence about breakthrough innovations that are becoming a reality. Now, if this framework, if these questions and the early detection systems changed how you think about breakthrough innovation, hit that like button and subscribe for more insights each week. Ring the notification bell so you don't miss new information on innovation decision making. For deeper tools and detailed implementation guides, check out Studio Notes over on Substack. Frameworks, tools, guides, everything's completely free. You can download it there. Links are in the description. And don't forget, check out our e-commerce store, innovation.tools. It's where you can grab my book, the card deck, other tools for yourself, your organization, and yes, even the merchandise. And therefore, you help support the channel as we continue the work here in producing content that hopefully helps you advance your abilities in innovation, enhances your creativity, changes your organization such that you outthink the AI. Your next breakthrough might be hiding behind someone and everyone else's what calls fantasy. The tools are in your hand. What dismissed idea will you investigate first? Love to hear about it. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.